What's going on, Bob?
Hey, so we're driving south from Cherbourg down the Cotentin Peninsula. Essentially all of the D-Day beaches are off to our left on the eastern side of this peninsula and on the northern side of the Normandy shore as the bay curves around ahead of us. So this beach on the left, which I believe was called Omaha Beach, is where the Americans came ashore on the 6th of June at about 6:30 in the morning. But during the previous night, the 5th leading into the morning of the 6th, the 82nd Airborne Division and the 101st Airborne Division parachuted in to the south of here, at a place called Sainte-Mère-Église. I think that's how you pronounce it. It took a few days, but essentially as the troops came ashore and linked up with the airborne divisions, they managed to cut the peninsula from east to west, isolating the garrison, the German garrison at Cherbourg to our north behind us. And after a bunch of fighting where the Americans basically turned left and then some of them turned right, Cherbourg surrendered on the 25th of June, which is my birthday. We're approaching the town of Sainte-Mère-Église. I'm sure that isn't how you pronounce it. And we'll be turning off fairly soon to go into the town and have a look at it, the various museums, and it's probably the most famous of all of the D-Day towns.
That's what we're seeing here, Bob. So
we just arrived at the famous town of Sainte-Mère-Église, and we're just about to get out of the car. We parked in the car park of the local church, and as a memorial to the efforts of the Airborne Division, there is a parachutist hooked up on the spire of the church by his parachute, and he's hanging over the side. It's actually based on a true story of a guy who got shot in the foot and ended up feigning death up there to survive being shot by the Germans. So that's where we are, about to get out. This is where we just drove from. This is where our yacht is, and we just came down the road here via Valognes, how we pronounce that, and we're in Sainte-Mère-Église. Utah Beach, which was one of the major American beaches, was just here, but the airborne divisions dropped in all of this area here with the aim of pushing out in this direction and also linking up with the troops that came ashore in this direction to cut the peninsula, isolate the German garrison at Cherbourg. The rest of the D-Day beaches are all around here, ranging from the British, the Canadian, the British again, the Americans and the Americans. So you can see the overall strategic plan was to have these massive concentrations build up of force, the Americans coming across the Atlantic, the British training up and deploying their troops down onto the south coast here. And then the two airborne divisions, or three. There's the 82nd American Airborne Division, the 101st, and the 6th British Airborne Division up here. So the 6th came in, parachuted into this area around Caen to secure the bridges over the Orne, and the Americans parachuted in to the Cotentin Peninsula to cut the peninsula, isolate the garrison here, control the main road coming through, and also cut the various rivers, control the various bridges across the rivers, so the Germans couldn't reinforce to the north. Troops set out on ships, nearly 6,000 ships. They concentrated in this area here, and then finally they came ashore onto 5 major beaches, a British, a Canadian, a British, an American, and an American beach. If you come across to this one here, you can see that this is the Cotentin Peninsula, and this is the Utah Beach where the Americans came ashore. And these are the various drop zones for the American airborne divisions. This one here was actually a glider landing zone right in the centre, and these were parachute zones for the Americans. And the principal role of the Americans were to control all of these bridges. Bridge, destroy the rail bridge here, control these bridges here. So the idea was to push out. This dotted line is what the limit of exploitation was meant to be for the airborne forces coming in. to push out from their various landing zones to control these key strategic points. These red points were concentrations of German defences. You can clearly see if you control the bridges over these rivers here, you prevent the Germans coming back in, particularly from Carentan and from this area here, and reinforcing and trying to drive the Americans back into the sea. Right where we are at the moment is Sainte-Mère-Église. That was Utah Beach, and these were drop zones for the Americans coming in. Quite a lot of different drop zones. Not individual parachutists, there were actually something like 5,000 parachutists that came in, 6,000 parachutists. It's quite a big force. So the concentration of drop zones was around here. This is the 101st Airborne Division drop zones, all these dots, but you can see quite a few of them were dropped way isolated, way off target. The reason for that was quite simple. Navigation was a hell of a problem back then in 1944, no GPS, and the weather over the whole of the D-Day period was pretty crap. So it's quite a challenge all in all. Didn't go exactly to plan.